Welcome, everyone, to Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. I am the Size Matters Dakotan, Bridget. I am here with my co-host, who is
Crazy Canuck Dave. Hey, Bridget. Once again, here we are online and talking to our friends and getting feedback. And how are things going on your end today, Bridget? Size
very
Matters?
well. Think of it as a virtual truck stop conversation. We're just having coffee while we're refilling fuel. So that's the easiest way to describe what we do today. So happy to have everyone here. As always, please remember that if you have questions or comments or story ideas, please reach out to us at crazycanucktruckin.com. And you can easily reach our website. You can also go to crazycanucktruckin@gmail.com and you can email us directly. And we're on all social media, whether that's Twitter, Instagram, etc., due to our fabulous backup help, VIP Social. So, David, what would you like to talk about first off the bat today?
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about memories and about our perspectives, our point of views. You know, because you remember, was it on a podcast or was it just online? I tweeted what I thought was a funny picture about a wooden spoon half burnt off because, and said this looks like paddles I got used on me as a kid. Well, I got reminded that may not have been totally correct. You know, my mother lives with us, and a requirement of her living here is that she has to listen to the podcast. You know, she's a captive audience.
Also, by the way, this is also a fine description of the fact why your parents should never follow you on social media, because no matter how old you are, they will still reprimand you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, Mom, it's not a requirement to live at our place to listen to the podcast. You know, just to be clear. But, you know, sometimes we remember things differently. You know, and that is something that happens all the time is two people, you know, like a mother and a child can see things differently, and two people in a snowstorm can see things differently. Husband and wife see things differently. You know, we all see things differently, and it's not necessarily any of us are wrong. It's just a little different perspective. And that's why everybody that's in a battle, not everybody comes back with PTSD, you know, but, you know, or driving down the road and there's, you know, PTSD on the road, you know, because you're in crazy situations, you know, it's not going to affect everybody the same.
This is why witnesses to a crime, so many people have to be interviewed because of all the different things they may or may not remember or their perspective. So perspective is awfully different.
Yeah. And, you know, getting back into that too, you know, with dash cams, I run a dash cam all the time, and I've gone back to look at things that I remember in a certain way. And it's like, that wasn't a red vehicle. That was a blue vehicle, you know, but that was what was in my mind, you know?
So speaking of perspective, that's kind of how I accidentally found our guest today, because his perspective is a little different than mine. No. So I'm gonna introduce everybody to Jacob. What I found out was we've met each other through Twitter, because we all know how much I adore Twitter. This is what I do. And on Twitter, I realized that Jacob's not that much younger than I am, but his life experiences and his perspective of what it was like to grow up in the 80s is way different than mine. Because I just hung out on the farm and milked cows and thought that, you know, I had a lot going on. No. So instead, I would like to introduce our guest today, or better yet, have him introduce himself, because Jacob and I have talked multiple times. I don't even know I can say his last name right. Is it Buckert?
It's Buchert.
Buchert. Okay, Buchert. So this is my friend Jacob Buchert, and he is from Alberta, out in the Lethbridge area. And I just thought he would be a fun guy to talk to today for our podcast, David.
That's awesome. So I know he's going to talk about white privilege, and he's going to talk about marriage advice, and he's going to talk about the easy upbringing he had. You know, so let's get started. Jacob, introduce yourself. And
Well, thanks, guys, for having me on. Hopefully, I pique somebody's interest, and I feel honored to be on here, and also question your sanity for having me on. But
We've questioned a lot of things. Sanity's at the bottom of that list.
Yeah, that's
no,
crazy
so,
Octave. Nobody ever says you're yeah. So we're good. We're good.
We're good, eh? So yeah, my name is Jacob Ballsy. I'm a Mexican Mennonite that grew up down in Mexico. I was born there, lived there for about 9 years. And so where I grew up, our family is very, very traditional. So we didn't have like vehicles and things like that. We had a horse and buggy. We hand milked our cows. Our tractors had steel wheels. So when we put up feed, so let's just imagine living in the early 1900s. That's about our level of mechanics and mechanism we had. So everything was done by hand. And from young on, like I remember being 6, 7 years old, dad would be, my dad was kind of a trader. He'd love to go into the mountains, find Mexicans and buy pigs and cattle and things and try to get deals, bring them home, domesticate them kind of, and then sell them. So he'd be gone and I'd be helping mom milk the cows, bring the cows in, hand milk and that sort of stuff. So, and it was quite neat. Like even running tractors, I was too weak to push the clutch in. So sometimes if dad needed a tractor move, he'd put me on it. He said, just run the steering wheel. I've already turned the gas off on the tank. It should run out by the time you get to where you're going. And if it doesn't, you start to run out.
Okay, I want to interrupt there for a moment because as farm kids, safety first, people. We always made sure safety first.
I think it's amazing how we never thought about safety back then, right? Like you just learn by doing and learn by being scared of stuff. Nobody ever told you don't stick your finger in here or don't do that because you might get hurt. Like I had a horse kick me in the head and knock me back, and I just remember being angry as I was bleeding, trying to catch this horse. I didn't think about my safety side of it. So it's life is totally different today than it was 40 years ago. So for me anyway. So
my brother got run over by a tractor when he was plowing because he thought the tractor was going to roll, and he jumped off and he got run over, knocked him out. The tractor ran into a tree at the end of the field, and his main concern was that dad was going to be mad at him.
Yeah, because of the tractor. Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much how our lives went as small kids. Yeah. So, okay, growing up in Mexico, dad's a bit of a trader. Things are going on however needs to be done. And then you decided to leave Mexico. Here's the part that absolutely blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were about 7 years old, and dad just couldn't make it as a farmer. Things were tough, or he just didn't do it right, whatever. He just couldn't make it. So we sold everything we had and paid off, I think, the bills. I don't know. I was 7. I don't really remember. And then we tried to get to Canada. My grandpa on my dad's side was born in Canada, so he was hoping we could just get to Canada. So he just packed everything up into 2 suitcases, found somebody that was going to Manitoba, bummed a ride. We jumped into the car, got to the border. Of course, they wouldn't let us across the border because we didn't have papers. And so they said, well, tomorrow you can go to wherever and apply for papers. So the people we were going with, we were staying at a hotel near the border. The people we were going with took off in the middle of the night, took everything but mom's purse. So now we're really down to nothing. Whatever we were wearing, sleeping in the hotel, and mom's purse is all we had left at this point in time. So we ended up getting a bus, and dad found a place where we could work on a Mexican ranch. And we stayed there for another couple of years doing some work and kind of built some stuff back up again. And then at that point in time, dad's like, okay, I want to go to the States. So he hired what they call coyotes down in Mexico. So they're guys that'll take you across. You've seen them in movies. It's very similar, at least in my experience. So he hired one, went to Phoenix for a month, found a job, and kind of lined everything up, and then came back and got us. And so then 5 a.m, we met at a hotel. There's 20 of us. My mom and dad, the 3 of us, my uncle and his 5 kids, and then some Mexicans. And we started walking the border. And I don't remember the exact time, but it was dark by the time we made it across. And it was quite neat because you would jump from mesquite bush to mesquite bush and hide. And then, you couldn't talk, you couldn't make noise. They would wave you when it was time to move. And then they'd have places where we could, be safe, but, you pee in the bushes and everything else. And we had to go underneath the fence through the river.
As a kid, did you think this was like a game? Like you guys just needed to play along? Because you were 9.
I don't know. I think you just live, right? From moment to moment. It's just, okay, this is what we're doing now. And so it's just step by step. Like looking back, it looks huge and it looks like a big deal. But at the time, I was 9, so I don't think I fully fathomed everything that was going on. But it's like, okay, now we go here. Like, I'm just amazed at my dad wanted so badly to have a better life for his family that at that age, he was willing to take 9, 8, and 5-year-old kids and wife illegally across a border into a country where none of us spoke English. We hadn't even, we weren't even domesticated. We didn't have an indoor toilet because we didn't grow up with that. We didn't grow up with indoor plumbing. So, this was so foreign to us. It was unbelievably foreign to us. Just to even run the toilet at the hotel that they dropped us off at was like, do we do it after every use or once a day? It's just, you just don't know. And again, we spoke no English, a little bit of broken Spanish, and the maids were Spanish, so we communicated the best we could with them while Dad was out working. But it was so bad. We never had food the first 2 days, so the maids pitched in and bought bologna and bread and brought it to us. And so that was, I'm remembering back, that was pretty amazing. They weren't well off, and yet they're willing to help out. So.
Because you guys spoke Low German, right? Yeah,
we spoke Low German. So which is a pretty useless language in lots of parts of the world, right? So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It works here in Southeast Manitoba.
It does, yeah. It works in Manitoba.
Yeah.
So as a German from Russia in North Dakota, I kind of know what y'all are talking about. Mine's a little more of a Russian slang, but I get it. So.
Yeah. And that's what Ukraine, right? My family originated from Russia and Ukraine, and ended up in Saskatchewan. That's where they homesteaded. And then a lot of Mennonites moved south with conscription of World War I believe. And so some of them ended up in Paraguay, Belize, and Mexico. So.
Yeah, we have a lot of that here in Southeast Manitoba. A lot of people that have been Canadian went down to Mexico, Paraguay, Belize, and then some of them have come back again. But we played cops and robbers as kids, but we didn't have cops with real bullets and real guns on us. A completely different perspective.
Yeah.
And so after that, you guys made it across the border, right?
Yeah, we made it across the border that day. It was scary, actually. I remember because, normally, I don't remember if it would take 4 hours, because normally they do these things at night. They did us during the day because there were so many kids involved. They typically don't have so many kids. But my uncle had 5 kids, we had 3, so they wanted to do it during the day. And so it took a lot longer because there's helicopters flying, there's patrol people. So when you're hiding, you're hiding. And but I do remember being scared, but I also remember being tired because I either had to carry my sister or a suitcase, depending on what was heavier for the longest time. So just, she could only go so long, and she was 5. So, and then also my uncle had a couple of young kids, so we would take turns, helping carry them. So I remember being tired, exhausted when we were done, and no food, no water until we got to the other end, and they had a cooler of beer. So the kids got the ice and the water, and the adults got the beer. So yeah. And then they stuffed us in a 15-passenger van with no seats in it. So we all had to lay in there like sardines, side by side. And then they put the radio on static, told nobody to talk, and then they drove us all the way to Phoenix, like that, where they dropped us off. So Phoenix was scary because we were the only white people where they dropped us off. And so there was a lot of crime in the area. There wasn't a day where a cop car wouldn't come and arrest somebody and drag them out. a lot of husband and wife fighting with beer bottles, beating each other up kind of stuff. And so Phoenix was really scary. I remember mom's like, you can't go outside to play, but we were there a month. And how do you not let your kids outside for a month? And we couldn't even turn on electricity because we didn't have money. So we'd buy candles, and all our food was cold. Basically bologna and tortillas was pretty much all we ate for the first month.
So you guys weren't going to school, right? You were just there kind of hiding.
Yeah, we were there hiding. Then my dad, somebody asked my dad if he wanted, or my dad was looking for a different job. So there was a guy came along and said, I can find you some work on a farm. So my dad and my uncle got into I think a Camaro or something, and the guy was going to take him to find some farm work. And my dad tells a story. He says, all of a sudden the guy goes down the back alley and more guys jump out and he says, give us your wallet. And my dad's a big guy and he's not really scared of anything. And my uncle's bigger yet. So my dad just says to the guy, or to my uncle in Spanish, he says, you reach around and choke this guy to death and I'll take care of the guys outside. And the guy looking in, asking for the wallet says, whoa, this is not what we want. And the guy driving, I guess, got scared and took him back. But then they ended up finding somebody that was actually legit. And so we ended up getting a job on a farm on a little town called Liberty, Arizona. I think there's like 5 people that live there in the town. It's between Buckeye and Goodyear. And there my dad got a job, $25 a day, backpack spraying cotton, like any of the weeds at the sprayer mist or whatever. So we did that. We lived in a basically garden shed with a dirt floor and one mattress in the corner for a couple of weeks. And then Mom and I found an old house. The family that we were staying with, they would buy houses and then they would set them up for movie theaters. So, if you see a gas station that would burn up in a movie theater, in a movie, these guys would place a replica next door and that's what would really burn. Or a semi driving through it, they would cut a house all apart so when the semi hits it, it would just explode. So they had these houses on their property. And so we just picked one that was actually pretty good and we moved into it. And Mom and I did it while Dad was working. And then eventually told the boss, hey, we're living here now. And so it was good. Then they had an office that we were using it to shower. So Mom and I and brother and sister would go there and once a week we'd shower. And then the boss lady seen us one day. And so she was really good. She came and kind of took us under her wing, found us somebody to teach us English, found us a better place to live that they had. And from there, I think 2 years later, my dad ran their farm. And because he was honest, he was hard working, they really liked that. So he ran the farm and then they helped us get our green card and we got a 5-year green card. And so we're able to stay there and then eventually got our Canadian citizenship.
So I remember I heard you speaking before about your white privilege. And I think this is kind of an interesting story. You want to tell that story?
The whole cotton, in order to, we wanted to make some money, right? So Mom and I would hold cotton. I was 9. And my brother, most of the time, because he was 8, would watch my sister at the end of the roast. And we'd be out with all the Mexicans holding cotton. And the immigration or the migra would come out and they would card everybody. But because we're white, they never came and carded us, which was good because we didn't have papers, right? At that point in time. And I remember there was times I would stay home, Mom would go and hold cotton. And if she wasn't home by when she was supposed to be, Dad and I would always be like, oh crap, immigration got her and deported her, right? Like, I don't know how many times we thought, why is Mom late? Did they deport her, right? So we didn't have self.
Right. And you guys, you didn't have any paperwork at the time. When you got green cards, they were finally just for the US and you were still trying to get to Canada. Yeah,
we've been there 4 years by the time we got our green card. Just about 4 years by the time we got our green card. It's amazing. And I don't know what it's like now, but so this is in 86 to 89. It's amazing how well the US is set up for illegal immigrants. Like when we were playing, we were still living in Phoenix. My cousin slammed the door and I had my fingers in the door jamb and he broke my fingers. And the neighbor lady that usually was getting beat up by somebody came and and phoned 911 and got an ambulance. And we're like terrified, like, oh my gosh, we're going to get deported. We're like, no, it's fine. You know, my fingers are flat as a sheet of paper because in a metal door jam in the back, right? If you could imagine this. So they didn't give up, and they're like, no, it's all good. So they took us to a hospital, and we waited there, and nobody asked for a green card. Nobody asked for money. They did x-rays and saw that the fingers were broken. And then my dad finally, when he got home from work, found out where we were. And so he got a cab and picked us, came there, and he's like, how bad does it hurt? And I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. And he goes, let's just get out of here. So I left with broken fingers. Oh, did that hurt forever. My fingernails fell off because all the tissue was dead. And so I had no fingernails for a while. And sleeping on just the floor, that hurt so much for a long time. I remember that. So
let's just say every farm kid has somehow slammed their fingers in something. Generally, though, we didn't just walk out of the hospital the way you guys did. But I understand the circumstances you're talking about.
Yeah.
We weren't afraid of getting deported.
Yeah. We went to school for 3 years without papers. This lady, the boss lady who got us in contact with someone, they really helped us out. And I don't know how they did it, but they registered us in school. The bus picked us up. The first day they wouldn't pick us up because none of us were wearing shoes. Apparently, we had to wear shoes to get on the bus because we didn't have shoes. So then they got us some shoes. But all in all, I was amazed that we were able to go to school and all this stuff, and we never ever got. It just seemed like everybody took it for granted. Like, oh, whatever, you're here, you're working, you're fine. It's only the immigration that we had to worry about. Nobody ever ratted you out. So that was anyways.
So then it got to be like about 1989, and it was time to move on to Canada at that time.
Yeah, my uncle lived in Canada. He was getting paid way more dollars per hour than my dad was, and my dad's like, you know what? Let's go to Canada because I get paid more.
And this was a different uncle than the uncle you had come across the border with.
No, it was the same uncle. He got his paperwork sooner, and he ended up, because he actually actively worked to go to Canada. My dad kind of liked the farm job, and so he stayed on the farm because he really enjoyed it, and he always loved working on the farm. So eventually, my uncle had already been in Canada for about a year. So then we followed him up here. Made twice as many dollars per hour, but if you've never lived in Canada, it costs 3 times as much to live here. So yeah, the first winter was rough because we're not used to winter. We grew up in Mexico and Arizona, like what's snow and ice and stuff. So Dad lost his job in the winter because he was on road construction. So then I'd get up in the morning before school, shovel sidewalks. Hopefully it snowed. Shovel sidewalks, collect money, bring it home so Dad could go buy groceries. And he hated that so much, he found a farm job that was year-round shortly after. And so we started doing that, work for farmers. I would work for a farmer too, going to school. Normally, a Mennonite kid, in those days, by the time you're 12, you're pretty much expected to quit school and go in the workforce. But my dad was like, it's up to you. You want to work and go to school, you can do both. So that was really good. First Mennonite to graduate high school in our area. Probably the first, I don't know if anybody followed me for 5, 6, 7 years. But played sports, everything else. So we really went in the culture.
Yeah. My in-laws, out of 8 kids, only the youngest 2 went all through high school. It was all grade 8, you're done. Mm-hmm. You had to work for your dad or your mom.
Yep.
If you're a woman, you went and did housework.
I still have guys asking me, hey, will you hire my 14-year-old son? He's done school. I'm like, no.
Right.
No, I worked all through high school, but I did that on weekends and summers and stuff like that. I still was in school. So,
and now today, okay, you have a whole different operation in your life, and you are married, you have children. And so at what point did you meet your wife? She must have grown up in Canada, I'm going to guess.
Yeah, so we started farming in the mid-90s as interest rates were coming down. Because a lot of people were losing their farms in the early 90s, late 80s, because interest rates were stupid, commodity prices weren't that great, and there was droughts. And so we started farming on cash rent. So Dad and I would farm our own farm that we rented at nighttime, and we'd each have a job in the day. And so we'd take turns. Like, I think it was like, Dad like early morning, so I'd work from 7 a.m. till say midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, you know, between my job and our farm, and then Dad would work from 1 a.m. till I took over, kind of thing. And so sleep wasn't really something we did, you know. Right. And we would do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? Like, this is just during farming season. Wintertime wasn't as bad, and so we started growing a farm, and we enjoyed it. We really enjoyed it. And one of my jobs was working at a small feedlot, and I really liked cattle. I never really worked much with cattle, although when I was little, we milked some. But other than that, I never really worked with them. So right out of high school, I just worked at this feedlot, and I really enjoyed it. So I started convinced Dad to start building pens at the place we're living, and we started feeding cattle. And realized I really don't know what I'm doing. So, all right.
That's the only way you get into things. Is you have no idea.
Yeah, just start dumping buckets of corn. They'll be fine.
Well, it's amazing how many people will take advantage of you if you don't know what you're doing. And so that's what we ran into. Is like, I couldn't afford to buy the cattle. We didn't have any money. So we'd feed for others. Well, they'd tell us what we need to charge them. But we weren't doing good numbers. And we're realizing that it was costing us more to feed these cattle than we were getting paid. And so it wasn't a very good start to the venture. So my girlfriend at the time convinced me to go to Olds College and you know, learn more about ag production and that. And so that's what I did. And so at Olds College is where I met my wife. So when one relationship ended, I started another one. And so she grew up in the oil field. Her dad was painting contractor for the oil field for many years, and so she kind of grew up in that. And when we got out of school, we were virtually broke, and I still worked stupid hours. I don't think she signed up for the amount of hours that I worked. And then when things were looking really bad, we bought a truck and started trucking. And it's really cool because if you run a logbook properly, you can get a lot of hours in a day. And so Dad and I would take turns. Dad would run 12 hours, I would run 12 hours. So we'd still do our farm work. Now we're back to this almost working 24 hours a day, which isn't safe. But we were determined. We're going to make this work at all costs. And if we had to go somewhere, one of our wives had to drive us because we'd pretty much fall asleep.
I think the whole, how to work a logbook, that discussion probably rings true with a lot of people listening to this right now. Just saying.
The old comic book.
It's definitely harder. I remember my dispatcher one time said, I told him I was tired of having enough hours. And he says, just go to the grocery store, get a tin of instant coffee, put 2 tablespoons of oil in there, eat it, you'll be fine. Thanks for the help.
Yeah. Anytime I tried to tell a dispatcher I could, I didn't have enough hours, they tried to tell me how to rewrite my logbook. Yeah.
No, it was good. We enjoyed it. We hauled cattle all across Western Canada, down to Greeley, Colorado, and stuff like that. And so we took turns, like I said. We also had a driver. So we just had one truck. We wanted it on the road 24 hours a day. We didn't buy a fancy Peterbilt or anything. We were just in it for the money. So we rode internationals and Freightliners, anything we could, the cheapest payment possible, right? So
Cornfield Cadillac.
So we did that for a little over a year, and then we got back on our feet. And my wife started helping us in the farm, and eventually we just started making better business decisions because I started learning numbers. And I always loved numbers. I just didn't know anything about it. And I just started making spreadsheets for everything. And as I started figuring out my cost of production on different things and started making some decisions and taking risks, we started growing things. And in 2011, I was a 25% owner of a 4,000 head feedlot. I owned 14 head of my own cattle and 2/4 of land that the bank owned. And my dad says, I don't like all this technology. I don't want to be a farmer anymore. I quit. And so I had to take over all the debt, give him all the equity, and somehow the bank was okay with this. And my wife and I just started on our own. And I remember my wife's like, what are we going to do? Like, what happens if we go broke? And I'm like, McDonald's is always hiring, so we'll be fine.
Your dad is a good negotiator.
Yeah,
First,
well,
I'm still at the, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I quit. Here you go. Okay.
well, it was, I started the conversation. I said to mom and dad, like, I want to be 50-50 partners going forward, because it was 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, because there's me and my mom and dad always started. And they're like, wow, we got 2 kids in the family. And I bet you this happens to a lot of farms. They're not working on the farm, but at the end of the day, we can't give you half. And I'm just like, well, I don't want to keep going like at this rate. And my dad's like, because I had computers and everything. I had computers in my feed trucks. I had computers in my barn. Like some of this was new technology, and for a guy that was only feeding 4,000 head, I was way over the top of how I was tracking things. And he just didn't like it. He couldn't understand GPS, hated the GPS and the tractors and that. And so he just like, I enjoy working in the shop. We had a shop. We were always building, so we're very ingenuitive. So we were building manure trailers, silage trailers, like anything and everything. And so he loved the shop. He loved building, and so that's what he did. So he took over that side of it, and I started taking over the other side of it. So my wife Carolyn and I, we just worked like crazy. And in the fall of 2011, I thought, well, let's take on more. And I found a feedlot that was deserted, 7,000 head feedlot. So I stopped.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah. If we're going to do something, why shouldn't we just take on 7,000 head instead of like 70? Nope.
Exactly.
Let's just start bigger and better.
Yeah, so I stopped at this place. It's an hour from where we lived. And I asked the guy, what is he doing? And he says, I'm waiting for a young kid like you to come over and buy me out. So we negotiated, and that was a Monday. And I says, I need till Friday because I want to bring my wife and kids out to see if they like it. So picked up the wife and kids and the holiday trailer. We parked at the feedlot that's had 20 head in it. Stayed the weekend. I said to the guys, what do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, whatever you want, Dad. We don't care. So that Monday, I signed the paperwork. By the end of the day,
hey, you didn't ask your wife. I didn't hear anything about asking the wife. You asked the kids.
My wife gets mad at me because when I first told her about the feedlot, and she goes, "Are we going to move there?" Because it was a little tight at home. We had my mom and dad living on the same yard as us, and my brother. And anytime you have that much family, if somebody turns a light on at the wrong time of the day, there seems to be somebody's up in angst. Not always, but it wasn't our family. And so I wanted to grow, and there was no opportunity to grow the cattle side where we're at. And so my wife's like, what's the place like? And I'm like, oh, it's on a hill. It's nice. It's a little old. Is there a house? And I says, there's a walkout basement. And she goes, okay. So we drive up and tour the whole place. And she goes, where's the house? And I never said nothing about a house, but there was a hole in the ground where there used to be a house, and it was a basement and was still there. And I says, there's the walkout basement.
Yeah.
This is why you and Hank Wade over there on Twitter are friends, because you two operated about the same level of marital advice. And I'm not recommending that for everyone.
Yeah, my wife still laughs. She goes, yeah, he promised me a walkout basement, but he never promised me a house. So it was good. I had a partner. I just started partnering cattle with. It was really good. And I phoned him and I said, hey, I'm buying this place. Do you want to put cattle in here? And he came and looked at it, and he says, you know what? I'm sure that I'm going to pay for this in university tuition, but let's do it. And so we worked together, and I had no money. So everything I did was I just went up to people and said, I have no money. Here's my plan. Here's my dream. It'll work. This is what I need from you. And so I would buy grain from people. I'd buy hay from people, whatever they asked. I said, you can bring it to me 1 ton at a time. And every month on the 15th, I'll pay you, because that's when I get paid. And the community was amazing. They started doing that, and I've been here 10 years now, and we've grown, between our 2 yards, we feed 20,000 head now. We have 900 cows. We farm a bunch of land. We have custom silage operations. We have 27 employees. And all that's grown because sometimes I can catch people. I can show them my vision, and I can get them to jump on it, I think. That's my theory. And when you have great employees, which are born from great leadership, and now call myself a great leader, but you grow, right? And so I love growing, and my wife has worked her butt off making sure that everything behind the scenes gets done, right? So I get most of the credit, she gets most of the crap, and we move forward. So
she must believe in your dream because she's still married to you after all these great things you do for her.
I ask her every once in a while if she's sure, like, why are you here?
So
she's way better looking than I am. Like, I really married like up a lot.
And okay, so one of the things that I learned about you through Twitter, and for those who don't know, I do a call every Friday. It's a live chat on Twitter where it's like a radio show. People can call in and talk. And Jacob and I talked on there one day, and he pointed out that a lot of his employees don't have a farm background. They're coming in really green, but that's allowed for good expansion of ideas, him to be a strong leader, and for them to learn new skills and own it. Instead of just being told this is how you have to do it, they figured it out. And that seems to work for you, Jacob.
I started in this industry knowing nothing about cattle feeding. I didn't grow up cattle feeding. So I learned everything by asking stupid questions. So, probably the most valuable people in my life have been my mentors, the guy that I originally started feeding cattle with. He's still one of my mentors because he's not only given me advice on how to do things, but also life advice, like things like you can't have a return investment in your marriage. So, so if your wife says you need a new car, don't do the math how this car pays off. Just buy her a car.
Yes. There are moments where just shut up and take care of your wife.
Exactly. Yeah. He says you got to learn when you can be cheap and when you just got to like throw caution in the wind. And so he's been a really good mentor to me that way. And so I didn't know anything about feeding cattle. So whenever I hired people that had known, I just found it really weird because they're like, well, this is how we did it where we worked before, and this is not how they do it there. And I got tired of that. It's like, that's probably my least favorite phrase is, this is not how they did it at my previous job. And I just got so fed up with that. And I'm like, you know what? This is how we do it. It's working for us. And so by hiring new people, I don't know, it's just who applied. And I always say it's easier to train a skill than it is to train culture. And we love culture, and that's what we've been working hard on for a few years, is to have good culture. This is a family. People see us more than they see their wife and kids. And so going to work should be a good time, should be fun, should be enjoyable, but should also be, you should accomplish something doing it. And if you can get that attitude, it doesn't matter what kind of person they are. If you can develop that attitude in them, they're rock stars.
I remember on that call with Bridget, then you said, you weren't always good at this and you had to learn the hard way. So it could be easy to sit here listening to you for our listeners and, wow, he's got it all figured out. That didn't come easy.
No, well, when I first started, I had guys quitting all the time because I push, like, honestly, I push hard, and my wife will tell you that I'm always pushing. I don't give her a honey to-do list, but it's darn close. And I'm always pushing people. And so it's probably because I always drive hard, so I expect everybody else to. And so I've lost a lot of people over the years, and not all of them were bad. And then over time, I started thinking, well, why are they quitting? What's the common denominator? Not every employee is a terrible person. So I'm the common denominator. Maybe I'm the terrible person. And so I had to learn culture. And John Gordon, who has written a few books, I read some of his books, met him in person at a conference, and then just started reading more stuff on culture and positivity and things like that. And just over time, we just started changing things. And I just got some amazing people that work for me that believe in the culture. And we had a good example this summer. We had a young kid work for us. I was complaining all the time because we like to hire students in the summer. And so we had some like 15, 16-year-old kids of people that work for me that were also working here. And they're basically told this new guy, if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. You can find a job anywhere. Like, if you don't like it, don't be here, but don't complain. And so it was really neat that the offspring of the people that we've been training are telling the guys, your attitude sucks. And this guy turned his attitude around. I thought he was going to quit, this young guy, but he turned his attitude around, and he's at our other operation. And I just got some huge kudos for keeping him here this weekend. And they said, like, because he's only 18, but he's working his butt off and he's doing a good job. But he's got it, right? It's in his head now. But we work together as a team. We're a family, and we look after each other. It's not probably my least favorite phrase in the world is "that's not my job." Oh, I hate that phrase. You almost get instantly fired if you ever say that to me. By far.
So as we're having this discussion, there's sometimes we get little notes in between each other, and I will say that as Victoria is listening, and she does all of our social media stuff, and she just said, I don't think most business owners understand that the culture can be the cause of them, and that people, they have to change their attitude too. It doesn't just have to be the people coming in. She is so right. The story that you told along these lines on the day we had our live chat on Twitter, the discussion you gave about your leadership and how you focus on people and what you do with them, you would be amazed how many other folks reached out afterwards to me and said, he's right. I have to rethink what I'm doing in my own world, in my business. And there's been several of those. So you have really spread good news to many. So thank you for that.
I enjoy it. I really like, my motto has always been to make a difference in other people's lives. And actually our company motto is to enrich the lives around us. We have it right on our front door when you walk in. And we came up with that because, we're feeding 20,000 head of cattle. We got 20 employees. We got customers. We got people bringing us grain. And the people, everybody that we connect with, we want to enrich their lives if they connected with us, and whether it's the cattle. And so if somebody needs to make a decision, we need them to go to a point of how do they make that decision. And so not every decision can go through me because I'm one person. I can only do so much. And so it's like, if you got an animal, for instance, that's suffering, and you got to make a decision, enrich the lives around us, what's best for that animal, right? Make that decision based on enrich the lives around us. That's our North Star. If you got to make a decision for a customer, what to do, because there's a disagreement, go back to the model. Just make all these decisions based off of that key phrase, and then we'll be fine. And I think that's paid us dividends because we get customers all the time that are happy. We typically never lose a customer in any of our business. And it's got to be something, right? So that's kind of what we're holding it to. But that's kind of how I live my life. My wife doesn't always agree. I don't think I always make her life better, but I think that's marriage.
That happens. That happens a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, my kids tell me all the time, you think you're so positive, but you're not. You're negative.
It's because your parents, as I tell our kids, I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm your parent. You don't have to always like me. It's okay.
No, my daughter works for me now. So I was bugging her one day. I'm like, am I really that bad? And she goes, no, I just don't want to say nice things.
That's awesome. Good daughter right there.
So maybe you'll find this nice, but if you look at our screens, and those who are watching on YouTube will see this, Dave has named each one of us, and we've been texting back and forth, and we were trying to think of what are we going to use for a CB handle for you, Jacob, and Ballsy seems to be right, because you were forward and you just asked, and holy crap, it worked, and it continues to work for you. So that is positive.
Got that from my dad, right? Like he took his family illegally with all the dangers to a new country, to places where we weren't safe all the time. And we took that chance. And so I think that's, it's just something. My son right now is going through Mexico, him and his girlfriend. They're in university, but because of the online portion of it, they just said, well, we'll do all online. And they just started an Airbnb in Mexico City. And they're moving throughout Mexico every month or every 3 weeks. They move from one place to another. They're sending us pictures. It's not tourist places they're going to, and they're just having a blast. And me as a parent, terrified to death. Like I keep thinking one day somebody's going to call me and be like, So this is the ransom for your
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and then when they get back in December, they're going to go to Thailand for a year and stuff. So I think that part of your brain that tells you to be scared, our family missed that part. Like, it just never got computed because we're just not that smart in a lot of areas.
Until you became parents. Well,
Right.
I guess your dad didn't, but
yeah, it's still not quite there. That little piece of the rest of us you didn't quite get. And so one of the things we always ask people at the end of, our discussion with them is a favorite road trip. I don't even know if I should ask that question.
Yeah, that's going to be another few episodes, I think.
I don't know.
Maybe there's one that stands out for you, besides playing cops and robbers for real.
Right.
Yeah. No. I mean, we used to travel a lot in the car. My dad would my dad was really weird that way. He would get us up 4 o'clock in the morning. He'd knock on our doors and he goes, pack up, we're leaving in 10 minutes. We're going to grandma's house. It'd be like 12 hours away.
Perfect.
So you pack everything into the car, no notice, we're going to go up. And then we get to the door and he knock on the door and grandma'd open. And like, what are you guys doing here? Oh, no, we come for a drive. We're coming for Christmas. It'll be in 4 days. He was that guy. It was just no notice. Just good.
Wow.
It was hilarious. But we had lots of car trips and stuff like that. Driving big truck, I really enjoyed it. Like being on the road and seeing things, listening to podcasts and radio shows. My wife did not. She said, I did not marry a trucker. I don't like you gone all the time. So we only did it for a little over a year. But she did not like it. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. You didn't marry a trucker. And even though I enjoyed it. So, I mean, we have trucks now. We haul silage and manure and grain and things like that. But our guys are home pretty much every night. So
is that your marriage advice? Actually listen to your wife?
No, because I'm always not listening to my wife. So I can't give that advice.
Perfect.
If I give anybody a marriage advice, it's this. I don't know how most people's marriages are. Mine is not fantastic every day because of me, because I speak and I say things I shouldn't, and I do things I shouldn't. And so we decided when we got married that we're committed to this relationship, and that's what we said right off the bat. We're committed. And so we've always, when we get like this, it's like, well, stop. We're reasonable people. Let's just figure this out. And then you start breaking down all the issue, and it's like, none of the things we're fighting about were actually the issue. Somebody said something 6 weeks ago that I don't remember what I said that stirred something, and then I just apologize, and then we're good again.
Well, okay, it's like
working it.
Yeah, you're taking it like step by step, like a business relationship. Take the emotion out of it. What's really wrong here? Let's figure that out. And that works.
Yeah, I mean, I got notes in my phone of things I wrote down. What will make Carol happy this week? And I never do them, but just me writing them down. She seems to be okay with it. I don't know.
It's the thought that counts, right?
I guess.
Oh, God.
You don't have to do it. You just have to think about it, and you'll be fine.
I heard you. I heard she hurt herself, and you took her to the hospital. And
that's my most memorable story. So before I had Jacob on my Twitter live call, he happened to join us one day when I had Henry Roberts on, who has been a guest on this show. And we were telling fun stories, and Jacob jumps in with the story about his wife, and I lost it. I couldn't hardly breathe as I was listening to him tell this story. So please, the floor is yours.
So my wife's had 3 big injuries in the last 5 years, and all of them due to her not listening to me. And so a cow hit her because in the morning when I went out, I said, that cow is calved. It's a little rank. I should have got rid of it, but it had a nice calf. And if everybody that has cows knows that if a cow raises a nice calf, you deal with the meanness. And so, of course, she goes out and moves the cow-calf pair, and the cow kicks her and breaks 3 ribs and gives her a concussion, cuts half her tongue off. And I didn't say much then, even though she was wrong. I supported her. And then we were skiing, and I said, like, when you go around, you just gotta go, 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 and relax. And she crashed into a snowboarder, landed on her face, broke her nose, and then finally, that was in February. And so now here last week, I said, let's go to bed, or 2 weeks ago now. I said, let's go to bed after we had a glass of wine. It might have been a glass bottle, but anyways, it was glass. And she wanted to go see the stars. So she's sitting outside looking at the stars. I'm sound asleep. And when she goes to get up, she trips and lands on the gravel face first. Like normal people put their hands out. She doesn't. She just uses her face. Breaks her nose. Her glasses cut the end of her nose right off just about. And it's got a big black eye on the one side. Her face is all puffed. And she's in my room bleeding as I'm sleeping. And she's like, get up, you gotta take me to the hospital. I'm like, it doesn't look that bad. Can you sleep it off? Like, go up in the morning. Then I fall back asleep. And about half an hour later, finally she got me up. I think she beat me or something, but she gets me up. I get dressed. We go to the hospital. It's like midnight. And the doctor says, what happened? I said, well, she wouldn't listen to me. And I wasn't thinking. And then he looks at me. And, I told her to go to bed. She went outside, tripped. I have to tell this whole story really, really quickly because
before the cops get called.
And he looks at her and he says, like, your second concussion in 6 months with your face broken. Like normal people use their hands. Are you sure you're falling on your face? So yeah, I told her I'm never taking her to the doctors again. Like if she falls, just call 911 because I'm gonna be running. Because if it's a third time, I'm in trouble. So, but she's mostly healed up now. Yeah, I actually don't like her when she's injured because she's kind of mean a little bit. Because I tell her bad jokes, she doesn't take them well, so she has feelings.
Oh man, imagine that, eh?
When she cut her tongue off, and they had to sew, like not off completely, but almost, they had to sew her tongue up, and it was really swollen. She couldn't talk, and she talks a lot, and I talk a lot. So I thought this is going to be the part in our marriage where I get to start getting words in. And somebody gave her a bell.
Oh.
It's not nearly as funny as you think because she'll like on a piece of paper give me a glass of water. Okay, so you walk out of the room to go get a glass of water. Ring, 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 ring. Go back. Can you put lemon in it? Writing it out, right? It's like, okay, walk out all the way to the kitchen, get the lemon. Ring, 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 ring. Can you put 4 ice cubes in it? That's like, I'm gonna shove that bell somewhere. You're
Do you ever correct her spelling when she's writing you notes?
Oh, I wouldn't recommend that. No, that
I
seems
actually don't know. I can't spell myself. Like she's really good with words and spelling and that. So yeah, grammar. Like when I tweet and do things, I don't know where a comma goes or the difference between an apostrophe or what's it used for. So I never learned that part very well. So.
No, nobody on Twitter knows anything about that.
Yeah, like I learned math. Like give me numbers, I'm there, but give me words, I don't know. That's not me. So no, but no. I remember when we first were dating and that, and like, cause she's way out of my league, and I says, "Why would you date me? Like, obviously you date like handsome guys and fit guys and that." And she goes, "Well, I like your sense of humor. You're easygoing." She's changed her mind on that a million times. She does not like my sense of humor nearly as much as she used to. So.
Not quite as funny as you used to be, right?
Not in her eyes, no, definitely not. So, and the worst part is my kids picked up my sarcasm, especially my youngest. She's really bad. My wife hates it when we talk because we'll say things like, just weird, out of the ordinary stuff, right? And it's all sarcasm and put downs and things like that. And it's probably not a good way to raise a girl, but she's gonna be tough when some guy comes in her knocking. So.
That's okay. That's okay to be a little tougher. Oh, okay. I'm going to need a moment to regain myself here because I'm just dying laughing.
Never give your wife a bell. That's all I can say.
I think that goes either way for either spouse, actually. If you refer back to our episode with Jason Hansen after his accident, he would also like to point out that his wife took his bell away very, very quickly. There was no allowing that for a length of time. No.
Yeah.
She said something about every time he passed gas, it would ring if he didn't
Yes, yeah.
put that thing away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That bell left. Yes. So, folks, this has been tremendously fun. Thank you so much. I know that there are things we didn't even get a chance to talk about yet, and one day we will. Nobody said we're done with this yet, but just wanted to say a huge thank you for everyone who is following along today, either listening by podcast or watching on YouTube. Again, connect with us at crazycanooktruckin.com or at Gmail or at any of our social media platforms. Make sure that you catch up with Redesign Social on Instagram. She handles our social media work. And thank you to my co-host, David, and our guest today, Jacob. You guys, it's been a lot of fun. It's been great. Thanks for coming on, Jacob. And like Bridget, Size Matter says, this is not the end. I definitely have more things I wanted to talk to you about. And so does Bridget. So for all of our listeners, there will be another time we'll get Jacob back on and we'll go through more marriage advice. And well, yeah, if he's still alive or not locked up, then we will go over more. So thank you, everybody. It's been a blast. And we'll see you again at the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.